Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, that is right, my friends. Hour number 2 of today's program. We've been talking about or going through Trump's interview with Kristen Welker of NBC, talking about the economy, talked about a lot of other things as well. I'm going to get through as much of this as I can. Before I get started, though, my friends, let me remind you as we're talking here about the economy, let me remind you that if you are tired of the economy, of giving money over to the economy, businesses who then use the profits that they've made from selling you a good or a service, they then take that and fund causes that you are completely against. Radical leftist causes, my friends. You're against those causes. You need to look at Freedom Marketplace. FreedomMarketplace.net is a place where you can go to find businesses that are pushing in the same direction that you are pushing, my friends. They're conservative businesses. They love America. America first. This is not a political litmus test. These are just people who love America, who love freedom and capitalism. They love this country. They're not supporting this radically woke agenda. In fact, if they do that, they're booted from the marketplace. Check it out, freedommarketplace.net. That's the website where you can go and check it out. Again, freedommarketplace.net, liberty and business for all, my friends. All right, so that being said, let us now venture into the other parts of this interview. We're still here talking about the economy. She, Kristen Welker, asked Trump how long of this of a transition period is going to exist, how much of this period of discomfort, of tariffs, of raising tariffs, of all this uncertainty. She asks him, how long is this going to last? And this is Trump's response.
You're talking about this transition cost. How long should people expect that transition to last, Mr. President?
I can't tell you that. I can tell you that we're making a lot of money. We're doing great. Again, we're losing more than $5 billion a day. $5 billion a day. You don't talk about that. And right now, we're going to be at a point very soon where we're making money every day. Look,
how soon?
We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars with China. Now we're essentially not doing business with China. Therefore, we're saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Very simple.
You take me to my next question, which is about China. They've been making a number of public statements.
Very positive statements the last 24 hours.
Well, and most recently, they said before talks could happen, the U.S. would need to remove unilateral tariffs. Would you consider dropping the tariffs to get China to the negotiating table?
No. First of all, you're giving me a statement that was said a week ago. You're not giving the statement that was said today.
I have May 2nd Chinese Commerce Ministry.
Do you know what they said today?
The U.S. wants to negotiate. It should show sincerity by preparing to take actions in correcting its mistakes and canceling the unilateral tariffs.
They made, first of all, they made numerous statements.
Yes, they've made numerous statements.
You know how many people speak for China? It's like 50
They've made numerous statements.
I can give you a statement for any occasion.
Yes.
But they said today they want to talk. Look, China, and I don't like this, I'm not happy about this, China's getting killed right now. They're getting absolutely destroyed. Their factories are closing. Their unemployment is going through the roof. I'm not looking to do that to China. Now, at the same time, I'm not looking to have China make hundreds of billions of dollars and build more ships and more army tanks and more airplanes.
This is it.
So you're not, just to be very clear, you're not dropping the tariffs against China to get them to the negotiating table. Those tariffs are staying on.
Why would I do that?
Would you lower them?
At some point, I'm going to lower them because otherwise you could never do business with them.
Yeah.
And they want to do business very much. Look, their economy is really doing badly. Their economy is collapsing.
So small businesses.
I'm going to pause there. I'm going to pause there and just let this breathe for a moment, because she's wanting specifics. And I understand to a point, right? I mean, she's a journalist, or she's pretending to be a journalist, and she's wanting to get information to people out there who have questions. Look, I have curiosity. How long is this going to last? There are realities here. There are some things that are happening that, would be better once we get through this phase, and everybody wants to know when it's going to end. And I understand that, but I also fully understand that that's not how this works. If Trump was to come out and say, look, this is on May 31st, I'm going to lift all tariffs, that would obviously impact the conversations that we had with China, right? Or any other folks around the world who were wanting to renegotiate our trade deals and so forth. And Trump's not going to do that. Listen, this is why it's important to have an America First mentality from our commander-in-chief. We haven't had that for a long time. In fact, we've had people who criticize, who look down upon that, who mock that America First mentality. Let me just say this for the record. Xi Jinping should have a China First mentality. I feel like this should go without saying. Any country around the world should have a perspective that looks out first and foremost for their interests. I mean, this is how we behave as individuals. And I think sometimes it's because people misunderstand the difference between selfishness and self-interest. I mean, let's say you're a high school student, or you're a young kid, or you've got young kids or grandkids or whatever. You want them to grow up and to be equipped to live the life that they want to live, right? You want them to be able to have the skills that are necessary to do whatever endeavor they feel that they should do, right? You want them to have the ability to learn about engineering or medicine or law, or take your pick. It makes no difference what it is. You want them to be as equipped as possible to do the job that, or career, or start a business, or whatever they're going to do. You want them to have those tools. They want to have those tools. That is not bad. That is not selfish. That is acting in one's self-interest. I'm amazed by this. I'm amazed by this in part. The Bible tells us, again, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, a believer in the Bible, the gospel of Jesus. But it says there's 2 commandments that Jesus gave the disciples. After, there's the 10 commandments in the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament. There are 600 and some laws that had been also created. And there's different types of laws. I don't want to get into a biblical history, but there's moral laws and ceremonial laws and like a civic type of law, governance type of law that pertains specifically to the nation of Israel at the time that God handed those down. But God boiled them, Jesus boiled them all down to 2. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as what? As yourself. Isn't that interesting? Love your neighbor as yourself. See, there are some out there who would say loving yourself is selfishness. Loving America is not selfishness. I don't hate people who aren't America. This is just where I live. I am an American. I am a proud, red-blooded American. I love this place. This is fantastic. The more I learn about and understand history, friends, we have it so phenomenally well. It is remarkable. It doesn't mean that we don't experience tragedy. It doesn't mean that we don't go through difficult times or losses. It doesn't mean that everything's guaranteed to work out the way that we want. But what it means is that the opportunity and the standard of living and the prosperity and all these things that we have really haven't existed for much of the world throughout history, even much of the world today. We are remarkably blessed. Now, we have 2 choices with that. We can either say, I guess we have 3. We can be apathetic and just not care. We can say, I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to take this opportunity and realize I've been given a tremendous, tremendous blessing here, and I'm going to try to live it out. Or the third one is we can feel guilty about it and feel bad that someone else doesn't have it. But what's ironic is the best way for someone else to have it is for us to fully embrace it, for us to let this be what it can be, and for that to spread to folks who don't currently have it. That's what I've said on this program for a long time. If you want people, the best thing on the world stage, the best thing that could happen to the world is that more countries would adopt the things that made this country great. Not because we're genetically superior. Heck, that's not the case at all. It's just which set of ideas do you cling to? Which set of ideas do you adhere to? Do you follow? Do you accept as the ones that we should be pursuing and so forth? Do you accept liberty and freedom and opportunity in the belief that all people were created in the image of Almighty God and that He has bestowed upon all of us individual rights, the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness? He created us. Those things came from Him, not from our government. And we need people believing those, number one, here, and championing those around the world, being spokespeople and advocates for these around the world. We've had people leading our government that have gone around the world and done apology tours for this nation. Listen, I'm not saying the United States has nothing for which it should be or she should be apologizing or feel bad about. The United States is not perfect. That's not the point. But she is good, and especially when you compare her to what else is happening around the world. America first is a good thing. We have an America first president, and it is going to benefit all of us. We just don't know the details. Ms. Walker, she continues here.
Say they are being hurt by the Chinese tariffs, and some could be forced to shut down.
And many businesses are being helped.
Are you considering tariff relief for small businesses?
Why do you always mention that, you pick up a couple of little businesses? What about the car business? They're going to make a fortune because of the tariffs. Do you know that the union, the head of the union, who was no fan of mine, Sean Fain, I guess his name is, right? He didn't endorse me. The Teamsters did. A lot of people did. A lot of unions did. But he didn't. He couldn't stand me. Now he's saying, wow, what's Trump's done for the automobile? I can't believe it. I assume he's going to probably now say the next thing he can say is, I endorse this guy. He's the greatest I've ever seen. He can't believe it's happened. He said, we've been waiting 40 years for somebody to do what Trump is doing. So why don't you mention the big car industry instead of mentioning somebody that's doing strollers?
Well, I'm just asking you about small businesses. Are there any discussions about giving any relief to small businesses?
They're not going to need it.
Okay.
They're going to make so much money.
Are these tariffs?
If you build your product here. Remember, there are no tariffs if you build your product here. It's very easy.
That's a good takeaway, a good statement from this. You've got nothing to fear as a business if you're making your products here. Now you can disagree with that. This is Trump's position. He's saying, look, if you're worried about the pressures it's placing on your business, then find other ways to produce your product. Now, that could be a big undertaking. Look, as a small business guy, I get it. And I understand why there is uncertainty and tension and concern amongst certain businesses that rely upon imports from places like China, right? I mean, I understand that. Trump saying this tariff pressure is designed to fix or to remedy some of these things that have been improperly put out of whack by previous government policies and so forth. Anyway, that's Trump's position. Take it for what it's worth. He's saying to Kristen Welker, why are you only talking about businesses that are suffering? There are people that are going to be made very prosperous and very wealthy. Their businesses are going to do fantastic because of the things that I've been doing. And I would add to that, where I think that this ends up, is it creates a scenario whereby these businesses that are currently suffering and struggling are going to actually break through, and they're going to benefit from the new lay of the land that's going to happen once we get through this phase and we work out some of these underlying problems and conditions. This is going to be beneficial overall for for America. It doesn't mean that there aren't tough times. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that these things that he is addressing have needed to be addressed for a long, long time, my friends. They're going to continue here, but I'm going to take a little half of a breath and tell you that if you are concerned about your health, like I am, concerned about your health, especially as you age, it's natural as you age to have a focus on things you didn't think a lot about when you were younger. At least that's my experience, and it's what I've experienced from those around me as well. But one of the things when you think about your health that is at the top of the list is overall heart health, and that's why I take Solti. Solti is a product that's great for your heart. It's all natural. It's not a drug. It's an all-natural supplement. It's been clinically proven to lower the cholesterol of many people. May be able to do the same thing for you as well. Check it out. Go to Solti.com, SOLTEA, Solti.com. Use promo code Todd. You're going to get special pricing on this product. You're going to get 50% off your first 3-month supply. Very inexpensive to begin with. You're going to save 50%, and you're going to get free shipping on top of that. It's a great special that Solti is offering to you, listeners of this program. Again, Solti.com, SOLTEA, promo code Todd, gets you those savings, my friends. I take the product. I think you should consider it as well. It's good for your heart health, good for your cholesterol. The only thing you have to lose are those high cholesterol points. All right, so that being said, a little bit of a breather there midstream. Let's get back to this discussion, this conversation, this interview that Kristen Welker has with President Trump, talking about the economy. It's now leading, it'll lead out of that into other topics, into China and so forth, but they're still kind of battling about this. Trump saying you're cherry picking the bad examples. There's plenty of good examples. Why didn't you pick those? But the conversation continues here.
See, it's very simple.
Are these tariffs permanent, Mr. President?
Depends on what you're talking about. One of the things that is going to bring and has brought, so I think we probably have close to $9 trillion of investments coming into this country. If you look at other presidents, there's never been anything like that. This is over a period of 2 months. You got to give me a little break on the 1 month because we're 3 months. But, let's say we had to get started. We had a lot of fake news at the beginning, so we had to beat that down. But so let's say in 2 months. So in just a short period of time, a matter of a couple of months, we have the largest number ever in history invested in the United States and committed. We have between guaranteed, spoken for, and people that are going to make a decision and announce it pretty soon, close to $9 trillion. We've never had anything close. Now, that's Apple building $500 billion worth of plants. They always built their plants in China. Now they're building their plants over here. That's the biggest computer company, the biggest chip company in the world. The chip company from Taiwan, which is the biggest in the world, is committed for $500 billion. Another one's committed for $300 billion. We have companies, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And let me tell you the other thing, very importantly, automobile companies, plant after plant after plant, Toyota, Honda, Ford, General Motors, Stellantis. I mean, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I don't like this, but it happens to be. They're stopping work in Mexico and they're stopping work in Canada and they're all moving here.
This is important, though.
He's talking to those leaders in those countries, by the way. He's speaking to them. He's pointing out, look, we have the momentum. You need the United States of America a lot more than the United States needs you. We would like to have you a part of this. But listen, since you've allowed this situation, this is Trump's position, you've allowed this, other nations, for this to happen. You've created a scenario whereby I've instituted these tariffs. You've not been playing fairly with us. You've not been interested in fixing these problems quickly and efficiently. Fine. I've got this going, and you know what? And this is the takeaway here. You know what? It's been going pretty well. It's been going better than I kind of expected. We got people all over the world that are wanting to bring their companies over here, build factories and so forth so that they don't have to deal with these tariffs. I'm starting to wonder if maybe that's the ticket here. And so what does this do? Listen, I know it is an inconvenience. It can cause problems. I admit this. It can cause problems for certain businesses in particular, certain products. It could cause problems with pricing and availability. There could be things happen, right? I understand that's certainly the case. But in comparison with how it's impacting these other countries, it is a tremendously larger problem for them. And again, as Trump says, I take no pleasure in watching these economies be wrecked. But if the economic factors, the economic pressures lead these countries to come to the negotiating table to help fix this problem in a way that's beneficial to both parties, not just their side of the table for a change, notwithstanding what I said earlier about America first, I expect all those other nations to come to the table from the perspective, whatever, Japan first, South Korea first, or all these countries should come, right? From European Union first, they should come with those perspectives. But it shouldn't be European Union only. It shouldn't be the United States is going to bear the brunt of the cost. They're going to be bending over backwards and all this sort of stuff. They're going to be defending the free world. That's not the way that this is going to work. That's when it actually becomes selfish, when you want the advantage at the expense, at the cost, at the harm of other people. You don't care the impact. And that's what Trump's trying to fix here. And he's talking. This right here, to me, out of this entire interview, which again you can see on our website at ToddHuffShow.com. It's in the stack of stuff today. It's actually in the Red State article. I found this in there, and that's where I've been watching. I watched the entire thing, but it's in a Red State article at ToddHuffShow.com. I encourage you to watch this. We're obviously not going to get through the whole thing, but anyway, this is Trump talking. He's talking to these nations through Kristen Welker here. Hey, you might want to get to the table. You might want to start figuring this out because we may be onto something here that's going to be beneficial to our country. I want you to be a part of this, but your obstinance and your lack of wanting to work with us all these years until now is concerning to me. I don't know where this is ending. I don't know when the tariffs are ending. This puts pressure on businesses who are in these foreign countries and on the foreign countries themselves to try to fix this problem as efficiently and as quickly as possible. Trump's not tipping his hand. Trump is masterful at this sort of stuff. This is where, look, I know there's a lot going on that I don't even know about, that I don't even fully grasp, but I'm going to tell you that I trust Trump to navigate this, to be strong here, to be tough, to bring people to the table, to get this ironed out, and then hopefully here in the next, again, Trump doesn't put a time frame on it, but in the near future, we begin the next phase of this of where Trump's economy is going to go, and we're out of this tension and uncertainty, and we're moving ahead in a direction that's beneficial to this wonderful nation. Timeout is in order, though, my friends. Sit tight. Back here in just a minute.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, my friends. I went ahead and I skipped a little bit ahead here. There's a couple more minutes of discussion about tariffs and the economy and the Fed and interest rates. Again, you can Google this interview. I encourage you to watch it if you have time and if you haven't seen it already. Or you can go to our show, Stack of Stuff page on the website, ToddHuffShow.com. And you're going to look for the Red State article. It's not a big stack today, but check that out. Anyway, so that being said, she comes back from break. In fact, you're going to hear some music. She's going to cue up the next segment talking here about illegal immigration and so forth with Trump, the courts, just the Constitution, all this sort of stuff. Department of Justice, this all comes up. I want to play this, talk about this a bit. Again, this is Trump's interview with Kristen Welker of NBC News, coming back from break and squaring up to talk about the courts, immigration, and all of that. Here we go.
Welcome back. President Trump vowed during the campaign to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. But in his first few months in office, President Trump is clashing with the courts as he executes his plans. Let's talk about the border.
Okay.
Let's talk about deportations. Border crossings are at their lowest level ever recorded. Is the border...
Is that good?
Is the border now secure?
Yeah, it's really secure.
It's absolutely
isn't that good
secure.
that when you say that, doesn't that just sound good? After being abused for years by an incompetent president that allowed people to pour through an open border, criminals from all over the world, murderers and insane people from mental institutions and insane asylums. Isn't it a beautiful thing when you say it's the most secure it's ever been in the history of our country? Isn't that a nice statement?
Well, I'm curious to know what it means. You declared a national emergency on the southern border. The order is still in place.
By the way,
even though you're saying the
exactly
border
what you
is secure.
said. It means we have the most secure border we've ever had.
Well, and I guess the question.
So pause. She's going to take this another direction, but he's right. Let's all just take this in for a moment. For a long, long time, for as long as I can remember, the southern border has been a problem in this country. I've given you the brief synopsis of the history of the southern border. We've talked about Reagan's deal with Congress regarding amnesty back in the 80s in return for a secure southern border. That secure border never happened. It never happened. And it got so out of control, my friends, especially under this previous administration, the Biden administration. It is remarkable what was happening there. Remarkable what was happening there. In fact, when they counted deportations, I alluded to this in a previous episode, probably last week. The previous administration, you'll have leftists tell you this. So there were more deportations under Biden than there were under Trump. That's because they were counting the people. There were so many people coming across the southern border on a regular daily basis that they were counting the people that they did send back, which were some of them, as deportations. And the numbers were more than what Trump's team has been able to accomplish thus far, which we talked about. Again, it must have been last week. But it wasn't as though Biden was kicking people out who had been here, who weren't supposed to be here. They were simply counting as deportations the people who were crossing in real time. And so it wasn't like a net number of people that were being deported. It was actually a percentage of the people that weren't being allowed in. It was wild. It was out of control. It was lawless. It was crazy. And we knew it at the time, but now that it's secure, I feel like we should take a breath and realize just what we were subjected to, and realize that we should never, ever, ever in a billion years allow these knuckleheads and liars and make-believe folks who engage in pretendinitis here, acting like they're doing us a favor by serving in political office while they absolutely did nothing but allow this mess to continue. And it wasn't just a mess. It wasn't just inconvenient. It was bad that it was problematic for cities and states. The cost is a very real thing, no matter what the left tries to tell you. There's a humongous cost of illegal immigration. We saw that even with some of these blue cities. Eric Adams, Democrat Mayor Eric Adams, New York City. It got so bad for his city, he had to say, hey, we got to do something about this. Happens for Karen Bass in Los Angeles. It's happened in lots of blue cities. Every city around the country has paid for this. That's bad enough, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. You start factoring in the human trafficking, the drug trafficking, the fentanyl problem. You start factoring in the people that were harmed, either assaulted or raped or murdered, families that have lost loved ones that should be here, but they're not, because people were allowed to come into this country, violent people, gang members, terrorists. You gotta be kidding me. 9/11 is what, 24 years ago, 9/11, this fall, September 11th. If you would have said in the next on 9/11 in 20 years or whatever, we're going to be allowing people to cross our border illegally who are terrorists. In 2001, 2002, 2003, Americans would have said, ain't no way that's ever happening. And it did happen. And no one in the administration cared. No one cared one bit. And I think we need to take a moment to just let that set in. This is a victory. I remember late last year, probably last summer, I said we've won the issue. We've won the fight over illegal immigration and border security. I remember declaring that on this program. But I said to you at the time, we've won the argument, but we still haven't won on it politically, meaning we've won it in the polls. People know that this is unacceptable, that this has to stop, that it's dangerous and all that stuff. We convinced people, we won the argument, but with Biden in office, we still hadn't won the political battle because they were pretending as though they were doing things when they absolutely were not. They were not. It was all a guise. It was all a ruse to make it look like they were trying to secure the border. They did not. They did not care. Look at what happened. We're 100 days in, 105 or 6 or whatever it is now, into Trump's second term, and the border is the most secure it's ever been. Let that sink in for a moment. You know, I compare and contrast this too with the left when they say the 2020 election was the most secure election in American history. Okay, make that claim, have at it. You can say whatever you want to say. Explain to me why. Explain to me how. See, I can point to examples here. This is the point. I can point to examples along the southern border. You can interview people who live on the southern border, and they will tell you it's dramatically different. You can look at what we've done to secure. You can look at the numbers that show the lack of people that are crossing the border. 94%, whatever it is, fewer people coming across the southern border. Maybe even higher than that. This has effectively been stopped. This has effectively been halted. The left told us for years, walls don't work. You can't stop this problem, blah, blah, blah. But yet, it has been stopped. And it's been stopped first and foremost because we won the argument, and secondly because we have a president who is prepared to do the work necessary to execute the will of the American people. Kudos, congratulations, this is good news. But see, Kristen Welker doesn't want to talk about that. She wants to say, well, if it's secure, then it's not an emergency. And if it's not an emergency, then you have to give up your emergency declaration. That's what she's really, I'm going to back this up a little bit. But that's what she's effectively saying here. Here she goes. Yep. Here we go.
A national emergency on the southern border. The order is still in place.
By the way,
even though you're saying
exactly
the border's
what you
secure.
said. It means we have the most secure border we've ever had.
Well, and I guess the question becomes, when will you know that the emergency is over? Are you planning to lift it at some point? Is it necessary? Because obviously the military is involved. Will you lift that emergency?
Well, the biggest emergency is the courts aren't allowing us to take really. We're
going to talk about that, but talk to me first about this.
That's to me the emergency.
Talk to me first about this.
The border now is not the emergency. The border is it's all part of the same thing, though. The big emergency right now is that we have thousands of people that we want to take out, and we have some judges that want everybody to go to
some
court.
of them you appointed, sir, including 3 on the Supreme.
Okay. Who cares? What relevance does that have? So she makes it sound like, or she wants the viewers to think, that this is such an obvious slam dunk that what Trump's doing regarding deportations along the southern border is so obviously illegal, unconstitutional, that by citing that some of the judges who have ruled against Trump here proves somehow that Trump is wrong. What relevance does this have? I mean, that is still the opinion of a judge. It is remarkable how partisan these folks view, people like Kristen Welker view this stuff. When it benefits her, of course, when it's beneficial for it to appear not partisan, she, of course, would say these are impartial judges. But in this particular instance, she's saying these are judges that are partisan to your politics. Now, that's, of course, convenient to her. This is how the left views things. It's kind of a mess. They've created a mess, there's no doubt. Trump is cleaning it up. They're trying to, what is she trying to do here? Trying to get Trump to say that the emergency is over, so now we've got to undo those things? If you undid those things, would not the emergency have to be reinstated? I mean, this is this takes a little bit more finesse than Kristen Walker appears to be suggesting here. I'm just out of time here this segment. Quick time out, my friends. You're listening here to Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, my friends. Last segment of today's program. And going through this interview again, it's 47 minutes. At least that's the length of the video. Actually, there's about, 4 or 5 minutes on the end of commentary. So it's a 40 or so minute interview, which you can listen to. I encourage you to do it on our website, ToddHuffShow.com. It's in today's stack of stuff. It's in the RedState.com article. Of course, you could Google it as well or go to NBC's website. I think it's posted there as well. Meet the Press. So again, where we left off, again, I don't have time to go through all of this, but Kristen Walker is trying to get Trump to say, hey, the emergency has ended, to which he's going to say, aha, then why do we still have an emergency declared along the southern border? Doesn't this end your emergency powers? Doesn't this invalidate everything you are doing? That's what she's trying to get Trump to admit and to say here. And I want you to listen to this in the time that we have remaining here.
Unbelievable how that happens, but they do change.
Just to button this up, though, are you planning to lift that emergency order anytime soon? Now that the border's secure?
We have an emergency. We have a massive emergency overall. It's an overall emergency on immigration. And if the courts don't allow us to take people out, if we had to have a court case, think of it, every single person, we have millions of people. We're going to have millions of court cases. Figure 2 weeks of court case. It would be 300 years.
So let's talk about this, because obviously you've had a back and forth with the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return. You've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision the way you said it. They don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you have the power.
And I want to pause that for a moment. She did. Remember, we went through this, and this has been, I don't know, this was clearly in April. This might have been close to a month ago. I had shared with you that on occasion I use our robust AI here on the back end here at the Todd Huff Show to summarize things like court rulings or injunctions or whatever. And I asked AI to summarize what the Supreme Court ruling was, and it said initially, I read this to you on the program, it initially said the Supreme Court ordered that Trump facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. When I pressed back and I said, wait a minute, did they ask or order him to facilitate the return or to facilitate the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Those are two dramatically different things. To which the AI said, you know what? You're right. It wasn't the return, it was the release. She just said the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is what this disagreement is about. Kilmar, I've been through this a billion times, but I'm just going to say a sentence here. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was ordered to be deported. The administration made an error by sending him to a place, El Salvador, where he was ordered not to be sent. But he was still ordered to be deported. So again, what they're trying to do here, let's move past Kilmar Abrego Garcia specifically and look to a broader conversation. They're still, Kristen Kristen Welker here, the media, they're still taking the position, they're still arguing with those, or making the argument, I should say, that this issue is about due process rights. Because Kilmar Abrego Garcia, in this particular example, was not proven to be a gang member or guilty of a crime, ergo, therefore, he cannot be deported. That's not how this works. There is different... Due process is different for criminal charges versus deportation hearings. There's a deportation process. That is your due process for deportation. If you have the process, even if it's expedited, if you have the process, then you have not been denied due process. But the left wants you to think, and I've heard people make this argument, if we can accuse this guy of being a gang member and he's not, they can accuse you of being a gang member and then deport you, which of course is crazy talk because, first of all, if you were accused criminally, there have to be criminal charges of being a gang member. There would be due process rights because in the criminal justice system, because you, assuming I'm talking to you as an American, you as an American can't be deported. If you are here illegally, you can be deported. End of sentence. End of conversation. I've been through this so many times. It just makes me feel like I'm banging my head against the wall here. But if that is the case, you can be deported. You don't need any other reasoning, any other rationale, none. If you are here illegally and have been given the opportunity to prove that you're here legally and you can be deported. That is the process. That is due process. It is so annoying. Now, what else is happening here, which I don't have time to talk about because the music's about to kick on, but Trump's also saying something that I think people misunderstand about Trump. Probably not you, but people out there in the mainstream media. Trump says, look, these are the questions for the attorneys. I'm trying to do my job as a politician. We're going to abide by the law, by the Supreme Court, but sometimes there are things that can be viewed differently, and sometimes a court has to step in and interpret and apply the law to a particular circumstance. So anyway, I'm just out of time. Thanks for listening today, my friends. SDG.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No